every time I think to myself, you know what, for a little while I'm not going to make videos about veganism. I'm going to talk about some other issues. There are really issues that come to the fore that I feel compelled I ought to talk about, especially given who my audience is. I've already made several different videos talking about direct action everywhere. I'm going to provide a link below this video to those earlier discussions. Some of them are fairly lengthy and in-depth and give a more systematic overview of who they are, how they were founded, what their principles or core concerns are. This video instead is going to deal with one specific issue, depart from a specific philosophical and practical question. Why is it that direct action everywhere thinks that making a display of weakness is strength? To be slightly snippy about it, why do they think that breaking down in tears in a shopping mall or in a restaurant, that ranting uncontrollably, showing that you're overwhelmed, that you're weak, why do they think that's going to bring about social change? Now, I'm not saying this in a mean-spirited way, but DxE has contrived this as a political method of what they call disruption. It's very different. If you're talking about, like here on YouTube, I see completely sincere videos of people sitting down, talking about their feelings, talking about how they're overwhelmed with their relationship with their boyfriend or their boss or their problems. I'm completely fine with that. And as I say, most of that is completely sincere. It's not contrived, and it's not being presented as a political methodology to change the world. If I come on this channel and talk to you about my divorce, it's not in any way comparable to what Direct Action Everywhere is doing, even if I break down crying on camera. I don't think that's happened yet on this channel. I don't think I've wept on camera for yet. But I say I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to the open display of emotion. What's strange to me, many aspects of this are strange to me, Direct Action Everywhere make these over-the-top claims about saving the world and about having a methodology that is based on the study of social science research and learning the lessons of political history. And they then vaguely allude to Gandhi in India, the abolition of slavery in the United States. They'll allude to anti-Vietnam War protests. They'll kind of allude to a bunch of things really quickly with a very shallow gloss. They like to mention the Arab Spring. I don't know if that's gone out of style yet. Take a look at the Arab Spring, man. It's been a disaster. Humanitarian nightmare resulting in civil war and what have you. I don't know if they're still showing the Arab Spring as a successful example of social change they want to imitate. Anyway, I roll my eyes at that a great deal, and I wonder if they've read anything about any of these examples. But anyway, they throw these out really quickly, and then they show you their methodology. And they have videos on the internet where they display exactly their ideal of how a disruption is supposed to go. There's a sort of glaring absence of logical lines connecting any of these points of reference. You're left to connect the dots. Like, oh yeah, Gandhi. Therefore, breaking down weeping in a restaurant is a great idea. It's a great method of social change. Oh yeah, the abolition of slavery and the Arab Spring. Therefore, showing up in a restaurant, ranting uncontrollably, holding up a sign and breaking down weeping, showing people how emotionally fragile, that's going to bring about social change. Well, pardon me, but at what stage did the United States abolitionist movement use these methods? At what stage did Gandhi wrote at enormous length about his method of pursuing and achieving social change. At what stage did he endorse this method or anything like it? The answer is never. And this troubles me on many different levels. If you watch this channel regularly, you know I've researched the history of Asia from many different angles. I would have liked to have been a specialist in just one country or just one region in Asia, but I haven't had that luxury. So I have actually studied the political history of India also to some extent. Right now I'm doing Japan. In the past I've also worked on Cambodia and many other places. For a relatively fun and indeed shocking article, there's a famous article that was published in Commentary magazine. Commentary Magazine is a magazine I only know about because of Woody Allen. Woody Allen used to make jokes about it. He used to, kind of insult this magazine as somewhat pretentious source of information. But if you Google it, you'll get it really quickly because this is still a famous article. It's titled "The Gandhi Nobody Knows." So if you just do a Google for Commentary Magazine Gandhi expose, you'll get this article right away. That article will contain many facts about Mohandas Gandhi that will probably shock you, even if you're cynical about politics. It'll reveal to you the extent to which what people tend to say about Gandhi, and I can't even say left-wing people who are peace activists, all kinds of people. The legend of Gandhi is remarkably different from the historical reality of Gandhi. But, for me, that article, even though it reveals many scandalous and shocking things, it doesn't, I think, deal with the core issue here, which is that, Gandhi's political praxis, which I see cynically referred to by people like Direct Action Everywhere, it's actually set out in a multi-volume work called Nonviolence in Peace and War. And if you compare the first volume to the second volume, there's a tremendous change because Gandhi himself actually lost faith in his own political methodology. His ideas changed between the first volume and the second volume. Now, I read that many, many years ago. But the core idea that Gandhi advanced, and that people in India really got sincerely excited about at the time, was that his method of nonviolence was a method of warfare. It was war, but then once you were in the position of superior power, you would hold back from actually slaughtering your enemies, from actually engaging in violence. So it's not at all what people imagine it to be. Now, that method, you can say it's a good method or a bad method for India at that time. But it was a method devised for a situation where Gandhi felt confident that the vast majority of people in the population of India were opposed to the British Empire. So they were an absolute majority. They were, from his perspective, they were 90% of the population or 98% of the population. Whether or not that's true, I mean, maybe they were only 85%. I don't know. You can look into exactly what percentage of the population were really supporting independence of the British Empire. But doubtless, it was a huge majority of Muslims, of Hindus, of all kinds of people in India at that time. So he felt in that circumstance they were in the position to demand change, to organize and amass themselves, and then to press for change like an army, imitating military methods, which a lot of people in India at the time were very positive about. There was a very pro-war feeling in the air in India because the way India experienced World War I was completely different from the way Europe did. For one thing, of course, none of the battlefields were in India. But the Indian perspective on war at that time was not what you might expect. And Gandhi himself, was very pro-war as a younger man. When Gandhi was living in South Africa, he was actively trying to join the British Army to fight for the British Empire, not against it. Very interesting psychologically and politically. Look, and all this stuff is from memory. I mean, none of this is scripted. I'm sorry. These people at DxE who want to be your great intellectual leaders, they're painfully ignorant of exactly the stuff they choose to speechify about. This isn't my chosen area of expertise or interest, but I'm better informed than Wayne Seong, guys. I'm sorry. His writing on all these subjects is banal at best. Amazingly bad author. But anyway, hey, he's got fans. It's cool. I don't like Kanye West either, but millions of people like Kanye West, so whatever. It is what it is. Sorry, so I was talking about Gandhi's overall approach to nonviolence in peace and war. This type of methodology, even looking over all the bizarre contradictions within it, even choosing to ignore Gandhi's own loss of faith in the method, because Gandhi, in volume 2 of that work, is already saying that he was wrong, and he regrets endorsing this method, because in his words, he thought India was taking the road of the nonviolence of the strong, but in fact, they were trapped on the road of the nonviolence of the weak. And in discussing this, he attacks exactly the type of methods that Direct Action Everywhere uses. Gandhi explains that he's completely opposed to putting yourself in the position of a beggar, of asking for social change from someone more powerful than yourself, that his model of nonviolence was only of putting yourself in the position of the stronger, of having the ability to threaten violence and then holding back from actually doing it. So look, to give DxE some credit and to shift to another but reasonably profound aspect of this puzzle, Direct Action Everywhere are also into challenging the normalcy of meat eating. That was something I was thinking about just today. But again, so this method, if that's your point, if you want to scream and weep in public and show extreme emotional reactions because you're outraged that meat eating is normal, and given all the intellectual pretensions of DxE, their claims to using social science research, learning from lessons of history, etc., what is the basis for thinking that this type of so-called interruption in people's normal lives will actually challenge the social normalcy of meat eating, leather wearing, etc.? It's very clear to me that the effect of having someone display extreme emotion in this way, like Priya herself, like the founders themselves, going into a restaurant, screaming incoherently, weeping, holding up a sign, etc., it does not challenge the normalcy of meat eating. It reaffirms the normalcy of meat eating and shows you as vegans to be abnormal, to be crazy. Most people will see that and think, oh, these people are psychologically abnormal. These people have some kind of emotional or psychological problem that makes them react this way to something that everyone else regards as normal and acceptable. And they may not be wrong. We have to face up to this also, guys. I mean, God, I remember that video with a bite-sized vegan weeping about the death of her dog and having an emotional breakdown. It's real. But I mean, I've talked to the vegans about it. It's like, shit, at what point in this movement can we look at the relationship vegans have with their household pets and say, hey, this is kind of messed up, like psychologically, like in terms of vegan philosophy and practice, like this is not really something we should be celebrating. Like dogs evolved in the wild. They didn't evolve to be a decoration for your carpet. Like, you know, our standard of what is normal in human-animal relationships has to be based on wild animals, not on domesticated animals that, you know, even if it's a rescue dog, even if whatever the excuse or history is, like these emotional relationships, this is not the core of veganism as a movement, and it doesn't even fit into the social model of veganism very well. Sorry, one controversy leads to another here. The people who regard vegans as crazy or as having an abnormal emotional attachment to animals, they're not 100% wrong. Some of us fall into that category. Some vegans are crazy cat ladies and crazy dogs. And, you know, bless them. Their heart's in the right place. I'm not here to hate on you guys. But, yeah, the appearance that people are crazy in this way. But if we're supposedly learning from history, is this how cigarettes went from being normal to abnormal? If your point is to challenge the normalcy of meat eating, there was a time not too long ago when people smoked cigarettes in the church, in the hospital, in the military. They used to smoke cigarettes sitting around the boardroom table, looking at maps. All those places are non-smoking now. It used to be normal for pregnant mothers to be smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, and everything else. These things were challenged. How and why? Science is a part of it. Social stigma is a part of it. Public education is part of it. You can draw up a whole diagram. But yeah, there's been a dramatic change. I would say there's also been a dramatic change in attitudes towards alcohol consumption. And I think that change is still ongoing. I think we're going to continue to change our attitudes. But there's almost no place in any of those examples, whether it's India gaining its independence, the abolition of slavery, changing attitudes towards alcohol and cigarettes. There is almost no place in this for these overwrought emotional breakdowns, which are the core methodology that Direct Action Everywhere supports, promotes, and defines their movement by. So to me, this is an open contradiction. And I'll just, to give one more caveat, it's true. Like with cigarette smoking, it's possible that there was a documentary film that interviewed someone who was dying of lung cancer. It's possible that there's some role for this type of emotional gnashing of teeth, emotional outpouring. It's true. I'm not going to say there's zero role for that. In India's revolt against the British Empire, there's some role for tear-jerking accounts of people whose husbands and sons have been killed by the bayonets of British soldiers. Sure. There's some role for salacious, emotional anecdotes. Some. But if DxE has these claims to learning from the lessons of history and social science research, how is it possible that they've taken in this constellation of stars, all these unrelated points with no dotted line connecting them, and the only lesson they've taken from it and the methodology they've pulled out of it is walk into a restaurant, break down weeping, etc. It's pathetic. And it has that worst possible combination of being pathetic, embarrassing, discrediting the movement, making us all look crazy, not getting results, and at the same time being tremendously self-important, intellectually pretentious, and asking for your donations now. Hey man, there are two aspects to this. You can curse the darkness, or you can try to light up a candle. Ultimately, I'm saying this stuff about DxE because I want to do better than them myself. And I want to see other vegans get organized, do something better, do something real.